All right, guys, I'm excited. Actually, I'm the one being interviewed. I am the interviewee, and my friend here, Jeremy Gatewood, the Word of the Sword Ministry on YouTube, is going to be doing the interviewing.
And
But
I'm
this
actually
is
very
the
nervous.
first time that we've met in person. Was earlier today, right?
Yep, very first time, very first time. Even after doing all those collaborations together.
So we've done some other stuff. I think we did a live together a couple weeks ago. Kelly and I were in Tennessee. We've done a number of other things, and then you've been on our Patreon forever. I know that you work closely with a friend of mine, brother Mike Allen, and with Devora,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and communicate with them often. I'm looking forward to meeting them at the conference. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But let me get the intro going, and then we're going to dive into this little interview action. All right, so we're here for a conversation, and I've been looking forward to this. Now, he sent me all of the questions in advance, and I haven't looked at them. I prefer to be surprised.
Right. So this is going to be off the cuff interview. It's just a conversation between two brothers. So pleasure to meet you, brother Pete.
Absolutely.
And Shabbat Shalom to you, brother.
My pleasure. And Shabbat Shalom. We did just have a great dinner, didn't we?
Absolutely. And I'll be uploading pictures of that shortly. Now, this brother has many names, many titles under his belt, including from the army to the clergy. But he always tells me to call him Brother Pete, while other men call him elder. Some people might refer to you as deacon, reverend. The list goes on.
But for me, honestly, I don't need a title.
Yeah.
I see things in scripture where the camera is going to chase some things. We've got to have to make it obey.
Right, it's okay.
Talking with hands, and this thing decides it wants to do all kinds of crazy stuff. See if I can get it to freeze. Can always cut that out or whatever, but go ahead.
It's okay. So to get started, I always like to start at the very beginning. So if you don't mind, brother, tell us about your upbringing. Most of us grew up in, for me, it was AME Zion Baptist Church.
Mhm.
Some people Methodist, Pentecostal. What were your upbringings as far as where were you born, church life?
So I was born in Atlanta. My father was in seminary at what was then Columbia Theological Seminary. It was fairly liberal then, and probably much more liberal now, if it even exists. I don't know. But he was not doing well in seminary, but he felt called to ministry, but he didn't feel called to a pastorate kind of thing.
Right, okay.
And his real passion was flying. And so we ended up moving from Atlanta to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he attended Embry-Riddle University. Already had his undergrad degree. At Embry-Riddle, he got his airframe and power plant license, as well as, I think, his instrument flight rating, be able to fly IFR. And during that time frame, my parents were attending a non-denominational evangelical church that had a very eschatological bent.
But kind of like you were attending a multi-denominational mesh.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. And the mindset at that time in that particular congregation, they had just Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, had just come out, and it had to do with Jerusalem that had been captured, or the Temple Mount that had been captured in 1967. Jerusalem had been taken back. And in Hal Lindsey's mind, that's the beginning of the 7-year tribulation. You got 3.5 years of peace, and then 3.5 years of war. And so the congregation said 3.5 years, because I was born in 1967. I was actually born a month before the Temple Mount was taken back. And and so they established an outpost in the jungles of Colombia, South America. And my dad was one of 2 bush pilots that was there to serve that. And so I literally, from the age of 3 until the age of 10, lived in South America in the jungle.
Wow. So you're the real life Tarzan, right?
Yeah, it might be close. It's yeah. Eating catfish, eating monkey, eating capybara. Yes, we had the rainforest. We were 24 hours by boat or 60 minutes by air to get to the nearest electricity. We were in the sticks. Literally grew up in a bamboo hut with a thatch roof. It's very true. Outhouse, the whole 9 yards. Our place had running water though. Okay. Because every morning, one of my younger brothers and I would pump water into the 55-gallon drum that Dad put in the rafters that gravity fed the little sink that we had and dumped the water straight out on.
So he was a handyman, much like yourself, then,
right? He was pretty incredible. Yeah.
Well, from what I've seen out here, I mean, like father, like son.
So we had a good time. We walked around the farm today. Took a look around, see what's here.
I didn't get to feed any of the animals, but that'll come. The ground is still moist. I almost slipped a few times.
Oh, we've got the mud right now, bro. Yeah.
So we went over your upbringing, and I got another question about that. I know where your father's faith was.
Mhm.
At that young of an age, did that lead you anywhere? Because he had a calling, what you said. He felt like he was called into a ministry, not necessarily being a pastor. Did that affect you necessarily growing up? Because you got roots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the age of 13, now we came back around the age of 10. I was already a solid believer
to U.S.
To the U.S. Okay. At the age of 13, I took a summer mission trip to Mexico and spent all summer in Mexico. At the age of 18, I took another summer mission trip. During this time frame as well, Dad was he was a conspiracy theorist before conspiracy theory was cool. And so around the age of 18, I took another summer mission trip, and I spent the whole summer in England living on a canal boat and doing evangelism, street evangelism. And it was during that time frame that I knew I was called to ministry, and I dedicated. I remember specifically, and it was a typical Christian deal: walk the aisle and say, God, I don't care, I'll do whatever you say. And so I knew I was called to ministry at that point, but I didn't want the pastorate. I really did not. And so I came home from that summer away, or summer in England, and then France and Switzerland, and I started college, and early on in college, I became enamored with the ROTC program, and I jumped into the ROTC program and got a full scholarship. So that was a good deal.
Right.
But for me, it was an opportunity to run away. Right? I just can't send me into the ministry if I'm in the military. Right? That was my thought process.
It seemed like it catapulted you into the next part of your life. But you were in the military,
Mhm.
and now we're going into that part. Where was your faith when you went in there?
So during college, I probably attended the Church of St. Mattress more frequently than any other denomination or congregation, to be perfectly honest. College, I did a lot of the college things, though I will say, and I know this is probably not commonly bragged on, but I left college with my virginity intact. However, I significant alcohol, picked up a lot of other bad habits, that kind of thing. Went into the military. And my first duty station was in Korea for a year, and during that time frame, in the latter part of that, was when Desert Shield, Desert Storm kicked off, and I called the Department of the Army, and I said, "Get me to the desert now. I didn't want to miss it. I'm young, I'm single. Let's do this." And so that's how I wound up with the 82nd Airborne Division in Saudi Arabia. I came literally, I called Washington on a Sunday night, and by Wednesday I was on a plane leaving Seoul, headed to the U.S. and just a few days in the U.S. and then I was off to fill an empty slot in the 82nd. So that was.
So you said, "Get me out there," and they said, "Yes, sir."
That's exactly what happened, man. And at that point, I'm my thought process was this. If you're going to be on a soccer team, why practice and never play? If you're going to be on a football team, why practice and never play? This is like, it's an opportunity. I've been practicing for a couple of years. Let's go play. Let's play the game, right?
Through the motions.
Yeah.
So now you're in the military. Your faith has kind of guided you there. And I want to touch on something that you said about your father and about yourself. Most men that are called actually run away from pastorship. It seems like a path of bondage in the modern day church, or to bond you to a set of rules. Is that what you were feeling about that time? Is that really why you decided to go and run away from that?
I think I didn't want what a traditional pastorate looked like. Later on, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too far ahead in the story, but later on, when I after I got out of the military, now while I was in the military, I met Kelly, and we should actually talk about that story for just a second. But a little bit later on, after the military, I went into business, did some other stuff, was occasionally looking at different seminaries because I knew I was supposed to go, but I didn't. Sequence of events then eventually led me to doing that. And even during seminary, I was looking at the mission field or anything other than traditional, get a church, be a pastor kind of thing. That's not what I wanted at all. I didn't feel a desire for that. So, yeah.
So the calling came in a different way, but you actually did get to what I was going to ask you next. You met your first in the military, Sister Kelly.
So Kelly was a dental hygienist, and it's kind of a fun story. She and I tell it. We remember it differently, right? But coming back from Saudi Arabia, of course, that was a very short war. We only spent, my unit only spent about 6 or 7 days in Iraq. Covered a lot of ground, a lot of territory, had a lot of success. And then afterwards, we had 30 or 45 days of downtime before we get back. Leading up to and during that time frame, we're playing volleyball in the sand and getting tans and all that. So I came back in March, and I'm sporting a big tan, and my job as a medical platoon leader was to make sure that all of the battalion, about 550 or 600 soldiers, had Panorex x-rays, right? How do you identify a body? By the dental records, right? And so we had to keep up-to-date Panorexes. And so I went to the dental clinic after I got done running one day, and I was wearing, at that time, running shorts for athletes were typically these really shorty shorts. This is the 80s, like into the 80s. And I was a cross-country runner in college. Was still a long-distance runner. I remember doing a 10-miler on Christmas Day in Saudi Arabia, that kind of thing. So I got that, a little running singlet, and I go into the dental clinic. And no, before that, I had a dental appointment. And I managed, and she was the dental hygienist for that. And then I went, I used every excuse I could to go to the dental clinic multiple times.
So it was love.
I later found out that she had standing orders with the desk up front that she was to be told anytime I was in the building she needed to know.
Wow.
But and she's enlisted. I'm an officer. Lots of complications, what have you. But she's actually about 18 months older than I am and had been in the military a little bit longer. Right? She was in Berlin when the wall came down. Interesting piece of history there. But yeah, that's how we met. And then shortly thereafter, she had a parachuting accident and lost both hands in a parachuting accident. They encountered some high voltage power lines, about 12,500 volts, something like that. She says it was a shocking experience. So and then just to continue here, so during her hospital time, essentially she's recovering in a hospital from double amputation. I initially felt guilty for leaving her or abandoning her, as most of her friends did, and the guy she was dating at that time. So the bottom line is I just kind of continue to help communicate, what have you. Things sort of developed from there. And it got to a place where that was in June, July, or May, June, July. By September, kind of knew, she's a girl that I could spend my life with. And one of the important things, one of the really special characteristics that she displayed is that she didn't become an invalid as a result. She was a fighter and she wanted to be a doer, which even today, a lot of times it's like, baby, how about you let somebody else do that? Because that's not something that's really in your wheelhouse, but oh, she wants to do it, right?
I can attest to that. She's a doer.
You see what you did to my camera? No. You give it that flat hand, man, and I'm telling you what, it
goes where it wants to.
Well, what it does is when it's green light, little quick thing, when it's green light on there, that tells you that it's frozen in place.
Right.
But if it goes to blue light, the blue light is motion detecting, and it'll start following any motion that you've got.
Okay. Yeah,
see,
that was on me.
And the other day I found out that it does a red light thing too, but I haven't figured out what that is. And that might be sensing. Nope, doesn't. So I don't know. I can make it look like it's zooming. Anyway, all right. So somewhere in the October timeframe was the first time that we had what I would call we had relations, and we didn't know it at the time that was probably very serious.
For your two positions in the military, right?
Well, it's not so much serious from that perspective as I look back now, and I would say that marriage is sex plus intent.
Right.
What actually happened is that after she got out of the hospital, they discharged her. She was still in bandages. There's still a lot of recovery left, and they said that you can go home. She said, I don't want to go home. Home was, states away. So instead, what she did was she moved in with me.
Okay.
And I'd say we didn't have a covenant at that point, but I considered us together, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was intent.
Mm-hmm. Well, her parents and my parents came to visit us at Christmas that year. And the last day, I expected confrontation. Didn't happen. We had 2 or 3, 4 days together, hanging out, friends, family, introduced to everybody, talking, whatever, it's all friendly. And then the morning that both sets of parents are leaving, they say, we want to talk to y'all in the bedroom. They took us all back to my bedroom. And they said, what you're doing is not right. Y'all have to break up or you have to get married. And I said, we're not breaking up and we're not getting married. I still understood marriage as going to the justice of the peace, or I still understood marriage, I guess, as being having
the state
something
contract.
The state contract, right? And they said, well, we're going to pray for you, and they left.
So let me ask you, what denomination is her parents?
Baptist.
Oh, her parents are Baptists, and
mine were Presbyterian. Well, they were multi-denominational much earlier, but they were Presbyterians at that point.
Okay, they had grown to Presbyterian kind of towards the end.
From the time that we moved back at the age of 10 on, they were attending my mom's home church, which was a Presbyterian church. So that's just where they fit in.
Okay.
So to take that story a little bit further, and then, because this helps to formulate a little bit of my thought on marriage at this point, about 14 to 20 days later, she called the office one day. I was getting ready to go to Ranger School, and I knew I was going to be gone for a period of time, like maybe 3 or 4 months. And she called the office, and somebody said, Lieutenant Rambo, you've got a phone call. I said, is that my fiance? I'd never asked her to marry me. I'd never mentioned marriage, and we hadn't even suggested it, but we were just together. And when I got on the phone, she said, am I your fiance? I said, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I never got on a knee. I never asked her. I didn't give her a ring for another 18 months, a year or 18 months was when I gave her a ring. I had something custom designed that she could wear as a pendant because obviously she can't put it on hands.
Right.
Um, so we went to see Justice of the Peace because that's what you're supposed to do. And in the military, that's probably a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Paper's a good thing because you've got, there are additional pay benefits, insurance benefits, medical benefits, a lot of these other things. And so I'm not somebody who says hard line, no marriage certificate, because I think sometimes it's advantageous to
The situation.
utilize what the state offers.
Absolutely.
We live in the system. We pay taxes into the system. Why not utilize what's there?
Especially when dealing with probate and dealing with probate and wills and last testaments and things like that. They do look at, was this person married? Because if so, then that spouse is entitled by law.
Right. And so for us today, with her disability, all of my medical comes through that as an example. So that is it's a benefit, right? So in January, we were married in the eyes of the state, and then the family was aghast because, oh my gosh, you didn't have a pastor. Well, no, they were like, what? You didn't have no preacher?
Oh, you didn't do the big wedding thing.
Right.
Oh,
so then we had to pay for our own big wedding thing.
So you
6
had to
months
go back
later.
and do a do-over.
So we look at it now and it's like, we don't know when we got married because that's really, sex plus intent as I understand it today. But it was somewhere in October and November of 91. And then January 92 is when we saw the Justice of the Peace. And June of 92 was when we actually had the pastor. So we've done it all. We had the whole shebang 3 times.
Wow. You guys got married when I was born. Right around the time I was born. Wow. I want to ask how you guys keep it going.
So, life for us has always been pretty good. It's not always been perfect. We've definitely had some ups and downs. There have been at least 2 distinct time periods in our married life where we were going to marriage counseling to work through some things. Sometimes it's beneficial to be able to sit down with somebody and walk through and hear a different perspective.
And really quick, I want to do kind of a shameless plug. Brother Pete himself does actual counseling. He does counseling with some of the brothers in Patreon.
I would call it coaching because technically, if you use the word counseling, you've got to have a degree. I'm not a counselor, but I do offer marriage coaching or life coaching. Right?
Yeah. He's gotten some brothers on a good foot, and is working on me to do the same.
So Kelly and I have been married for 35 years. 34 will be 35 this coming January. Yeah, we've been married. But with the state paper, right? So we're,
Wow.
I count myself blessed.
So at that point, got married, no children yet. Kelly just had an accident. You guys were, working around that, and obviously madly in love because you took the leap. When did you yourself started going to church, or did you guys find a church here, or? Actually, were you guys still in the military?
I think we were still in the military at the time that we got married. I think we were attending a church in Fayetteville periodically, but it was after we moved to Virginia Beach. Job move. I got out of the military and then job move to Virginia Beach, where we started attending a church called Church of the Open Door, which was we affectionately called it the Church of the Revolving Door because it was in a Navy community, man, and there were people coming and going all the time. And so, people would come in, it's like they were here 3 years ago, and now they're back, or they're gone on deployment, now they're back. So it was for multiple years we were in Church of the Open Door. Really good pastor there that helped mentor and disciple me. And that's where we got really committed back into the church and participating in churchianity. Right.
And that's really where you saw your faith blossom, both you and her?
It was a progression. I think it's always a progression, but a lot of that seemed to there were a lot of big changes that happened during that time frame. I would agree. but still, although in the back of my mind, I knew I was supposed to be going to seminary, right? So that was kind of playing there, weighing in, that sort of thing.
Was it kind of pushing you to be more active in church at the time?
Probably, because I mean, I did intentional discipleship with Joe. What was it? What was Joe's last name? I don't even remember Joe. I remember the pastor's name was Joe. But I did intentional discipleship with him, was meeting with him on a regular basis, frequent basis. We were working through things scripture wise and growing and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh, understood. Wow. Okay, so you getting back into it. You're going into church now. Now you're under a discipleship. At what point did you start taking a bigger role in that particular church, or was that just a training ground for you to go somewhere else?
I didn't, never did. The time came where we moved back to Fayetteville, and we weren't in Fayetteville very long when my father died. And it was at that point that uh, during the weekend of his funeral and some things that the father really spoke to me, and I committed to, and we moved to Columbia, South Carolina to attend a seminary.
Ah,
Have you been searching? Have you been searching for deeper understanding of biblical family structure? We were once where you are, full of questions, seeking answers in Scripture. That's why we created this special community, a place where seekers become family, where questions meet experience, and where biblical teachings come alive. Join us on Patreon and discover private discussions in our Telegram groups, real conversations about family and headship, a supportive community that grows together, and direct access to experienced mentors. Whether you're just starting your journey or deepening your understanding, we're here to walk alongside you. Take the first step. Join our family today, and let's grow together in understanding and fellowship. Shalom, and welcome home. So there you go.
wow. Okay, so now you're going into seminary, right? Because you've moved.
So we moved to Columbia, went to seminary, spent 40 years in seminary. I worked a full-time job for 2 of those years, and it was a good time. We already had 1 son going into seminary, and then we had 3 more while we were there. So we came out of seminary with 4 boys.
So was your oldest your first boy? Was he born before or after? I know you
He was
came to Columbia.
the eldest was born in Virginia Beach.
Okay, so that's why you guys were there.
Yeah.
While you were under the discipleship. Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, from Virginia Beach through Fayetteville to Columbia into seminary was a fairly short window. It was a in 1 year we had a lot of things happen very quickly, back to back to back. But in hindsight, the father very much was in control. He was directing our steps, um, and there's some good stories to go with that. But we could go all night. I can tell stories.
Okay. So now where we're at is now you've moved and now you're attending seminary. When you first started going to seminary, did you think, okay, this is it? You know, I've made it. Now I'm moving into what I've been called to be. Because now I've done the discipleship. Me and my wife have moved now to Columbia. I'm working a full-time job. Where were you at that point?
Um, so seminary felt right in terms of ministry. I still wasn't convinced for the pastorate, but that's just sort of, I mean, that's what's expected, right?
Honestly, I think that's everybody's journey.
Right.
You know, I was considered to be one, but I didn't want it because I saw the lies in the church. So I'm starting to think that's everybody's
And
journey.
and honestly, I'm not sure that it was. I didn't see the lies in the church. What I did see simply was a lot of burnout, and
Mhm.
for me, my personality, I tend to be a creative, and I like a lot of diversity. And doing the same thing over and over again, factory, uh, assembly line work would never work for me. I've got to be doing something, and I prefer doing something using my hands, right?
Right.
Which I get that itch fixed on the farm,
Mhm.
right? And doing stuff around here where, I just couldn't see myself sitting in an office or, going to visit, uh, on hospital visits perpetually and other things that was not me. But coming out of seminary, I was doing some guest preaching for a little tiny associate reformed Presbyterian church that needed a pastor, and then they asked if I would pastor, and for $525 a month, I preached 4 times a month in that. It was actually 2 tiny congregations that would alternate in each other's building. So it's
Wow.
the same congregation, and I think the deal was that I preached 3 times a month, and the 4th Sunday, they would bring somebody else in, and then anytime we had a 5th Sunday that they didn't meet at all, they'd go to other people's congregations, right?
Wow. Okay. So
So, that's where it started, and I spent 10 years with that, with those 2 congregations until I started seeing some things.
and doing that cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, as far as keeping my hands busy, I was building custom motorcycles. I patented a motorcycle part. I had a website and parts available online. I was doing a of course, this is Orange County Choppers days, and so it's like doing that kind of stuff, but not on that kind of scale. That was crazy, right? But we always enjoyed watching Orange County Choppers. I don't know if you remember that.
I might be too young for that.
You might be.
I might be
Some of the
too young for
viewers
that.
here remember that.
Yeah,
Orange County
they should.
Choppers. And then somehow I wound up as a funeral director, and I spent 5 years. I got my funeral director license, and I worked full time as a funeral director for 5 years while I'm still pastoring.
And I heard you mention that before, and I did want to kind of dig into that. Where was your faith at that point? Because you're a funeral director, so you're seeing death and having to deal with, bodies and grieving people, which sometimes you do deal with in hospitals. Did you ever get burned out with that? Did that ever bring you down to the point where you had to
The
take a
ministry
sit down?
side, the ministry side of that, I really connected with well. Something that I could do well. I struggled with the financial side from the
Yeah.
perspective that uh, while I worked for a good home that was in a small town and was very concerned, genuinely, I think everybody there was genuinely concerned for the welfare of families. What I saw in the funeral industry, as far as profiteering and as far as uh, the exorbitant prices and the things that were done, I saw that for what it is, and I realized, you know what? This is not the way it's supposed to work. And it's funny because even before I started keeping Torah, I was already looking at church askance and thinking, why aren't we doing house church? I don't see this church building thing anywhere in scripture. I don't
Right.
see I don't see the structure, the way it functions. And I literally read a book by John Zenz called The Pastor Has No Clothes. And the premise of the book was that the whole idea of modern churchianity, it doesn't look that way. The whole idea of modern churchianity is false. And so I started looking at. I was interested in home church, moving to more of an organic deal, organic model. Um, and so the combination between that and being somewhat jaded in the funeral business, but having lots of time to research because I was researching like crazy for um, conspiracy theory stuff. I still had the mindset of my parents. We're in the window for the return of the Messiah.
Okay.
What does it look like? And trying to understand and put together revelation and eschatology and all this sort of stuff. And that became the environment in which I'm asking the Father, how do these pieces fit together? And it was like he cleaned off my desk one day and he said, Christmas right in the center of it. And he said, study that.
Hmm.
And that was the beginning of my journey into Torah because I started studying Christmas, and this was like August timeframe. Studied Christmas and began to realize this is dripping with paganism.
Yeah.
I think Christians are well-meaning, but nowhere is Christmas commanded. Nowhere are we commanded to do birthdays.
Exactly.
Birthdays, we're excited and we remember the birth of our sons and this sort of thing. But where are we commanded to celebrate the birth of Messiah?
Where did the Messiah celebrate his birth?
There's no example of anybody in Scripture celebrating a birthday that I can think of, except for maybe Vashti. That might I something teases my mind that says that was a birthday celebration, but I could be wrong. But the bottom line is this: in that research, I came to a place that I contacted my nation and said, I've studied out Christmas, and I don't see where this is something that's profitable. I don't see where this is commanded in Scripture. I think we're actually violating Scripture by celebrating Christmas and bringing a tree and having an Advent wreath with the little red bow. What do you think? The tree and the Advent wreath with the red bow. All of those are fertility rites and pagan symbols.
Right.
They're all connected. And I contacted my denomination, and they said, it's okay. We know that's probably or very possibly true. Just keep that to yourself and keep preaching. And I went, huh? That was my first really big wake up call that I went, wow. Wait a minute, something's not right here when the establishment is saying, it's okay. Shh, it's all right. And so that was the beginning of the unraveling for me.
So they knew it was wrong, and they said, keep preaching basically the script that we've given you.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. Wow. And it's more so when what came next.
Okay, well, and enlighten us.
So we moved on past Christmas that year. Didn't celebrate it. Didn't acknowledge it. I didn't even mention it from the pulpit. Never mentioned it from the pulpit. Ignored the Advent wreath. The whole nine, kept right on preaching through the books.
Did they decorate? Did they still decorate?
Church was decorated, and I think they were scratching their heads, going, "What?" And I just ignored it, like it didn't exist.
Okay, that's the best way to handle something.
And I had been seeing on WorldNet Daily. It was a big Christian news site at that point. I had been seeing an advertisement for a DVD series titled "The Seventh Day, God's Calendar," or God's Clock, or something like that. It was a 5 DVD series, and so I ordered it, and as a family, we watched it. I think this is very important because my sons were in those formative years, the early teen years, the late, preteen years, and I literally took them on this journey with me. Okay, I think a lot of times people make the Torah transition, particularly men, when they make this transition, they don't explain, or they don't bring their family along in the discovery process, and right. As a result, they simply say, "Just do it because I say to do it."
Exactly, and essentially, what we're doing, we do that is we're slamming them into this brick wall, and it's like, they can't get through it or get over the doggone thing.
And I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago on Patreon for the mentoring call in the evening. The fact that children, particularly young men, once they reach those early teen years, their worldview, like cement, is starting to firm up. Yes. They're starting to have a handle on what's going on. They're processing. They're now able to grasp the sort of the architecture of what they're dealing with. And then if you go in and you break it all up and say, wait, we're not going to do this. We're going to tear it up and we're going to change it, and everything gets moved around, the cement doesn't set properly after that. So instead of just making these mandated changes in the house, instead what I did was I said, hey guys, let's study this out. And it wasn't because I'm that wise. It's because I think the Father was that kind to us.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
It was absolutely the Father's leading. And so we studied through it. And literally, it was my eldest son that said, we got finished with these 5 videos. It was an hour each night that we watched. We got done with it. He said, Dad, we have to keep Shabbat. And the brothers were like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I called my denomination back and I said, I've been doing some more research in this Sunday thing. I'm not finding that in Scripture. And I think what we're supposed to be doing is keeping the Shabbat. And that's when they said, we need to have a meeting. Yeah. And so
you're finding out too much stuff.
Yeah. So two pastors met me at the Golden China Buffet or something like that in the town that I was in. And we sat down, and it was interesting when I walked in. I noticed immediately I was the only one that had my Bible with me. They were so confident in what they knew that they didn't have their Bible with them. And they said, tell us a little bit about what's going on. And I started explaining, and I said, here, let me show you. And they're like, no. We don't need to see that. We know what Scripture says. And a couple times I pointed them, and they said, here's what we really need to know. Do you still adhere to the Westminster Confession of Faith? And I said, well, the Westminster Confession of Faith is wrong in this matter. And they said, well, if you don't adhere to the Westminster Confession of Faith, you can no longer preach in this denomination. Wow. So their faith was not in what Scripture said. They weren't interested in what Scripture says. They were interested in what the Westminster Confession. And so that's the grid, or that's the
scale.
It's the goggles that they look through to read Scripture. And so they can't see it if the goggles are blocking it out. And the Westminster Confession says, it has to be on Sunday. That is the new Sabbath.
And obviously they didn't want to change it. They didn't want to go.
Well, they didn't want me shaking things up either, because that was that was the end of my time in the pastorate, right?
Shake things up, then there's a bunch of people hitting the brick wall, and then they have to say, it turned into a big circus.
And so they said, well, we got to go back to committee. We're going to have this conversation with the committee, what have you. About 2 weeks later, I was preaching at the church. And it was always normal at announcement time for me to ask, are there any announcements from the floor? And, the floor is 15 people, including my family, maybe 20. And one of the elders raised his hand and he said, we need to have a meeting after church. In my spirit, I knew immediately. I said, well, this is my last sermon. This is the last time. And sure enough, at the thing, they said, well, some things, it's not growing, what have you. Well, hey, it's blue hairs in the sticks. I mean, that's really, I'm not sure anybody from those congregations are still alive today. And I love them. Don't get me wrong. And I was doing the best I could to pastor them the way that I knew. But they weren't interested in what I was learning. And because, I'm violating the traditions radically, and they decided it was time to let me go. And that's what happened.
Wow.
During this time frame, I will tell you that we were keeping Shabbat at home, and I'd go preach on Sunday. But we were keeping Shabbat. We kept Shabbat for about 4 months up to this point.
Did anybody I know you said, the congregation basically blue hair, but did anybody follow you when you left, or even call you?
No, in fact, in the small town. Now, there was another congregation that I had served as an elder in while I was in seminary, the congregation that I grew up in. And literally the pastor of that congregation sent an email to everybody in his congregation, and I think to other pastors in the area, saying, do not associate with him, treat him as an unbeliever. Wow. And literally people would turn around and walk the other way in Walmart when they saw us. It turned into a very cold environment, and it was a wilderness experience for about 6 months until the Father moved us to where we are today.
Wow.
About 45 minutes from that area.
So they basically gave you the scarlet letter.
The left foot of fellowship. Yeah. At the time, it was a very painful thing. We lost all of our ministry friends. I take that back. One couple and their children from seminary continued to be friends for a long time. We haven't heard from them recently. And I told Kelly the other day, it's time to get back together with them. So with the change and having Lily now as part of the family, I don't know if we'll be accepted there either. But everybody else, persona non grata, I was not, I got cut off from everything.
Wow. So you got Kelly and the kids. You've gone through seminar. Now you're keeping Shabbat. You're raising up your children to do the same, and your wife are doing it. Now you've been kicked out of seminar. How is the at this point? Are you still an entrepreneur? I know you mentioned the website and fixing up the
Sort
bikes and
of.
stuff.
The motorcycle business I had largely closed that down. I built a beast of a motorcycle that was a jockey shift, had a handle of a meat grinder with one of those old crystal doorknobs on it right here, with the clutch on the side, and it had apes, full apes, and it was a death trap. I called it the Widowmaker. That was the point at which I decided, you know what, maybe this motorcycle thing is not going to be good for my boys or my wife. And so I stopped doing that. I was having trouble getting the item that I had patented to really turn into a profit. It cost me more than I ever made on it, though it was a great idea. Somebody at some point in the future will pick it up and make a lot of money. But and again, I think all of this was the Father closing doors that didn't need to be opened to guide the footsteps, guide the path to where we are today.
Right.
But we were in this desert for months, and then one day I searched the internet for Messianic congregations in my area, and I found one about 40 minutes away. And I called the number that was there, and he said, "How'd you get my number?" And I said, "Well, I saw it on the internet." He said, "I posted that yesterday." So that was really the Father there.
Absolutely.
And we attended that, and about 3 months into attendance there, the guy who was running it walks in one Shabbat, and he says, "I'm taking a sabbatical. I don't know when I'll be back. Y'all have to figure it out." And everybody in the room looked at me, the youngest or the newest guy in the room. I wasn't the youngest, but I was the newest guy in the room. And I was like, I'm just kind of figuring this stuff out. And they said, "But you've got the seminary education." I said, "That is a detriment." That's handcuffs to understand the word. Because I'm telling you what seminary teaches you typically is man-made doctrines. It does not teach you what the word says. It teaches you how to see the word through their lens.
Yeah, through those rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
Wow, so you found a Messianic fellowship, and you're still doing, entrepreneurship. When you found that fellowship, are you now the leader of it after the head guy went on?
So I started leading that congregation or that little fellowship, and I led it for about 3 years. But towards the end of that, it grew. We were pushing, I don't know, 50 on the average Shabbat.
Sounds like you were in the right place.
Right. It grew. Where the little congregation I was in for 10 years, it didn't.
Right. With the old heads and the tradition.
Mm-hmm. So then some things the Father was really speaking to me towards moving towards home fellowship, and I knew really in my heart that Scripture does not teach the concept of going to or gathering. Or having a building and all these sorts of things. It's not there. It's not there in Scripture.
So let me divert and ask that, because I've always wanted to ask this as well. Where does that come from? The fact of everybody having to go to a place or calling it God's house. Mm-hmm. Where does that concept come from? Because obviously we don't see that in Scripture. Just as you said, we see more so homestead fellowship.
What we do see in the New Testament is we see synagogues, right? But the synagogue system came back from Babylon. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad system, but there are a couple things that are very bad that it does. Now, the Jews, while they were in Babylon, used or created this synagogue system for the purpose of being able to help keep people on track and learning and growing, and the young men growing and learning and understanding Torah and all their traditions. Right.
So in captivity.
Right. So I get that. The downside of it is that it removes the leadership in the home from the man, because it gets abdicated to whoever the pastor is. The pastor winds up being the one that becomes the spiritual head of the house. And I find that no place in Scripture.
Each house versus the man.
Right, which is how you wind up with a messed up authority structure where elders and pastors are inserting themselves into families where they have no authority. They don't.
Exactly.
Scripturally, there is no authority for a pastor or an elder to inject themselves into a family unless the elder is the patriarch of the family. At that point, he then has some authority to speak into it. But otherwise, it's no way. I'm convinced that Paul's definition of an appointment of elders was a pragmatic stopgap until patriarchs could grow up and be what elders were in the Old Testament, Tanakh. The elders in the Tanakh were the heads of households, heads of families. As the old gray beards that had sons and grandsons and maybe great grandsons, and wisdom comes from that.
I could not agree more.
Not because they drew your name out of a hat or everybody voted for you and you got a young person. I served as an elder in a congregation at 32, and I remember scratching my head going, how the heck does that happen? Oh, you're a seminary candidate. You're attending seminary, so you must know more than us. No, that's not my job, right? And it's true. There are a whole lot of 25, 28-year-old pastors that wield authority that they are totally unprepared.
Exactly. They should
totally
not
unprepared
have
to
any type of authority.
Yeah. And even the title and the position of pastor is not a place of authority.
Yeah. It's a place of service.
It's a place of service and teaching. The authority structure remains God, Messiah, man, woman, period, in the story.
Exactly. But today the title is used to lord over others, and oftentimes insert themselves into other man's households, and eventually, in most cases, destroy a man's home. I've seen instances, and I'm getting off sidetrack, but I've seen instances of pastors sending letters to the man saying that your wife and your children are not going to come back home until you agree to our doctrine.
Oh, listen, I know of horrific stories where pastors or well-meaning elders, self-appointed servants of God, I'm the mouthpiece. I can tell you, there's so many. I heard another horror story today of a man injecting himself into another man's house and family and destroying it. He didn't know the word, but he knew tradition, and he used it to try to destroy a family. And the family's working very hard to fix that, to collect themselves. But it's totally contrary to Scripture, and these self-righteous imbeciles will do this, and it's a terrible thing.
I think you've mentioned this before with Ezekiel 34, right? A lot of these pastors today are going to fall under that particular damnation or curse and punishment,
or at the very least, they're going to be sitting at the back of the row, the nosebleed section, whatever. It's I don't think the Father's going to deal kindly with these guys that tear families up and use their position of authority to override the man of the house, the one who has the real authority and has the real responsibility. It's not the pastor.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like me personally, I see it's almost like they're assisting in committing adultery with another man's wife because they're usurping his authority. They're coming in and basically saying, "Don't follow him. You gotta put in your life." I did the camera again.
It's all right.
You follow me. Why? Because I have a title.
People are going to watch this and laugh. Bunch of amateurs.
Right. Don't know how to move the camera. Okay. So.
See, I edit all of this stuff. When I do it, and I'm doing it, usually I'll edit this stuff out. Now, the zooming portion, I've gotten where I could just
the fingers?
Yeah.
I did it.
Just like that, right? Yeah. You just go right back. But when the camera suddenly takes a trip off screen or whatever, that's when I'll edit that out and go back and redo it. So now everybody's going to be watching my videos saying, where are the cuts? Where did he mess it up?
This is raw and unfiltered.
Yeah.
But But so you're at the you're at the you're basically the head of this particular congregation.
Mhm.
Which hearing your story, it sounds like it was definitely y'all led, and this was a position that he had called your father to, and he called you to. You ran from it earlier. Now you come back around to it, and that congregation has grown. Um, Now the congregation has grown. Where is it at this point? Because you got the
So,
kids, you
yeah.
guys are still keeping Shabbat.
So during that time frame, I really started to understand some cool things with regards to what Scripture says about who I am, right? Who you are. You're wearing the right T-shirt, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. He's wearing some swag here.
All thanks to this man right here.
No. But seriously, started to understand the two houses of Israel and the fact that everything in Scripture, all of it, is about the restoration of the two houses of Israel. And that led to my first trip to Israel, to the first B'nai Yosef National Congress, and I went to all three of them before that got put on the shelf temporarily. It also led to the publication of this book that you've got right here, titled 10 Parts in the King: The Prophesied Reconciliation of God's Two Witnesses. The two witnesses are, now you're getting smart. The two witnesses are the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And it draws so many connections in Scripture and pulls the pieces together to demonstrate unequivocally that Yah's plan and purpose has always been for the division of the two houses in order to accomplish his purpose, and then to bring them back together. Mm-hmm. And each of the houses has a different mission, right? The house of Judah, the primary mission is to be guarders and protectors of the Torah and shepherd it through history. They haven't done it perfectly. We know that. I don't criticize them because we haven't done our job perfectly either. I'm worried about my house, not worried about their house. Right. Let the Father do that. That's his bride. It's not mine. I'm not in a position to correct him. Right. But for our side, the house of Israel, the northern kingdom, was scattered into the nations and assimilated into the nations, as prophecy said would happen, that they would forget who they were. And then they would be awakened. First, the Messiah says, I have sheep that are not of this fold. He sends them after it. And then they're awakened. And so this delves into all of the prophecies and how all of those things are connected, what the ultimate trajectory and purpose of it is, with the goal being the restoration of the kingdom, right? And so we were even talking about that this evening, right?
Yes, we were. We were talking about that.
Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you, right?
Right.
What kingdom is he talking about? Yes, Christians, seek first the kingdom. What does that mean? I don't know. God's kingdom. Yep, whatever that is.
Wait a minute. It means just pray. That's all you gotta do. Just pray. That's what seeking the kingdom is. Just pray. Pray about what? So many things you can pray about.
Yeah, the truth is it's about the restoration of the kingdom. This is how Yeshua could tell the disciples, go preach the gospel of the kingdom, and they would go preach the gospel of the kingdom. And then later on, when he dies and he's buried and he's resurrected, or when he dies and they're buried, they're like, what happened? Well, clearly the gospel of the kingdom isn't the death, burial, and resurrection of the Messiah.
Yep, right.
Or they wouldn't have been caught off guard. They wouldn't have been scratching their heads going, what? Instead, of course, the groom against whom the northern kingdom had committed adultery had to die in order to sever that law, Romans chapter 7, verses 1 through 5, and then he's raised so that they can be joined to him in newness of life. This is the new covenant. However, you and I both know that the new covenant is not in full effect yet, because the sign of the new covenant being fulfilled, if you read all of it, Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 31 through 34, verse 34 says, no more will a man teach his neighbor, know the Lord, for they'll all know the Lord. And we're not there yet, right? Ezekiel chapter 36. And I've done videos on all of these things. I know you've seen them, and I know you do a lot of these type of videos on your channel as well.
Oh, I am. I want to make this announcement. I am nowhere near as knowledgeable as this guy right here. This is why I'm sitting with him today, because regardless, I learned.
But he's learning and growing, and he's sharing, and that's important.
Exactly. I learned a lot from this guy. So if you have not, please go like, comment, and subscribe on his channel.
So
Brother Pete Rambo, his link will be in a pinned comment in the comment section.
yeah, so we've got this, and for those who are not followers of Jeremy at this point, I would recommend his channel. As the Word of the Sword Men, MIN, and I don't know if I've got that in my banners or not. I should have put that up here. Got started, right?
It's okay.
Let me see. I might have it.
And instead of getting subscribers, I'm more focused on making sure I'm putting out the right things and the right information, because when I take my own hiatus from doing videos, I sit back and I look at a lot of content, a lot of things I'm putting out here, and I go, that person's wrong right here.
Right.
They've got this wrong. They don't understand that particular scripture that they're preaching about. And most of the time, I find a lot of female preachers, but they just have a wrong interpretation of the scripture because it's generally coming from a feminist mindset or or an Asherah.
Is that right?
Understanding. Yep, that's it.
So yeah, go. If you're seeing this on my channel, because we're going to play it on both channels.
Yeah.
We're just hanging out this weekend, and we get to do a big live together tomorrow night with everybody else from our fellowship. So I'm looking forward to that. Or a number of the other men that will be here in attendance. I guess not everybody. Yeah, go to Jeremy's channel and get signed up and like, share, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff.
And if you're not a member of Brother Pete's Patreon, if you're not a member of Brother Pete's Patreon, you can go on his Patreon channel and connect with like-minded brothers and sisters. The beautiful, beautiful thing about Brother Pete's Patreon is once you come in just at the $5 level, which is a cup of coffee, what I recommend every man do is for the first month, at least come in at the $20 level. You get one of these shirts that Brother Pete has on. Then you get a copy of his book, Authority, Headship, and Patriarchy According to
Authority,
Moses.
Headship,
and I have my copy over there to get signed later. But again, it's something I recommend every man do, but you also get access to the Telegram group. Now, once you come into the Telegram group, you have a general group for all of us Patreons. Men, we have our own group where we meet Brother Pete, some other elders, Brother Reeves, Brother Jeremy Guyton,
Brother Mike Allen.
You normally stream with Brother Allen. And women, you guys have your own section. So when you get tired of us in the general group, you guys can go over there and talk to each other.
Or just being able to ask the questions of the ladies and really get perspective from other ladies that have already been down the road in terms of the emotions and the jealousy and the struggles with why is this happening to me?
And the questions.
So absolutely. Good stuff. All right.
And we
so we were talking about this, and what really happened for me was I started having this understanding of the big picture from Scripture. And the big picture from Scripture is the restoration of Kol Israel, and it's more than just, hey, let's learn how to keep Torah. It's like, why? Well, it's because it's the national constitution. It's the rules of the family. It's a ketubah.
It's the marriage contract. This is how he identifies us.
Yes. So you look in the book of Revelation. I did a video on this. There are 4 verses in Revelation that you really need to go look at. Revelation chapter 12, 17, 14, 12, 15, 3, and 20, verse 4. And in the first 2, it says, those who are the saints, that identifies them as those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua. There are, the church has a whole lot of people with the testimony of Yeshua, but they don't keep the commandments of God. Right.
So they're missing one of 2.
Judaism has a whole lot of people who keep the commandments of God, but they don't have the testimony of Yeshua. So where's the narrow way? It's actually between those 2. It's between Christianity and Judaism.
So it's in doing those 2. Do you find the narrow?
Go ahead.
Do you find the narrow path?
Yeah. But 12:17 and 14:12 in Revelation says keep the commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua. 15:3 says they sing the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb. Well, that's the commandments of God and the testimony of Yeshua, right? And then in 20 verse 4, it also says the commandments of God and the testimony of Yeshua. So
Wow. Man, I appreciate you breaking it down.
cool
And I hope
beans.
you guys are eating very well off this interview. We're getting a lot of knowledge, a lot of scriptural basis from not only a man that has gone to seminary, so he's given us that side of it, but he's also keeping the commandments and statutes. He goes to Israel when he can. And I guess the next part would be you and Kelly are married, you're keeping the commandments, you had this congregation. Where does Sister Lily come in?
Okay, so after I came to an understanding of Torah.
Sorry. Let's start at this point first. At what point, because I'm pretty sure people want to know, did you flip to polygyny?
I was going to say I have to back up and tell part of that story.
Yeah.
So we came to Torah in 2012.
Full on keeping Shabbat.
Yeah.
Okay.
2014, the end of 2014 is, and I started a big blog. I wrote about everything that I was learning because there were so many people that didn't want to talk to me, but I knew in the background they were really curious. And so what I started doing was I started keeping, playing this big blog that, or writing this big blog. And currently there are probably almost 2,000 articles at that blog.
He's been busy.
And some of the posts are just real quick posts or something pretty simple. I was just feeding the flock. But it got to where it had about, I don't know, 2,000 subscribers, something like that. And this was 2014, 15, 16, 20, up to that point. And I wasn't really active with YouTube. But December 25th, and I remember the day because I thought nobody will read this on December 25th because they're too busy looking at their presents and everything else. I published an article. I really did. You can go search my blog for December 25th, 2014, and I published an article titled Adultery, Marriage, and Christian Error. And that's where I was asking some really hard questions, or what precipitated the article was asking some really hard questions about some things dealing with marriage and with adultery and trying to understand what is adultery. And looking at Jacob and having Leah and Rachel and Zilpah and Bilhah and God says nothing. So that was the beginning of my journey in terms of understanding polygyny. Because through that study, I realized, wait a minute, it's not a sin for a man to have more than one wife. But I didn't share that with Kelly. I assumed she's reading my blog. She wasn't.
Oh.
She wasn't. And so for about 3 years, I was doing research, becoming more and more convinced. I participated for a long time in a online Christian ministry for people who believe in polygyny called biblicalfamilies.org.
So is that where you transition after the
transition?
I mean,
go ahead.
I guess it's a poor choice of words.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So you transitioned to the online ministry of biblical. Was it Biblical Marriages?
So I'm still leading.
You're still doing that while
I'm still leading Home Fellowship.
Okay,
I'm doing this study on the side. I'm writing about some of it on my blog, and then somewhere in there, somebody in my fellowship came to me and said, "Pete," apparently they'd been stalking me.
Oh, wow.
They read my blog, but somewhere in the process, they figured out what my username was on Biblical Families. Because when I was in the forum, I used an alias and I never used my name or information, just to have discussions, and it was scripture discussions, and a lot of them were Torah-based discussions, right? But a whole bunch of people, and it caused a big uproar in the home fellowship that we had at that time. And well, most of them left. What was fascinating is that when they did, every single one of the families that left, the woman was running the house. And it just exposed that. And that to me was a head scratcher. I'm like, what in the world? Because see, I learned polygyny before I truly understood patriarchy. I was always sort of the patriarch of the family. I was a strong leader in the house, have always been. But that really exposed me to a whole new level of the significance and importance of patriarchy and doing it properly. It was also during that time frame, after I was 3 or 4 years into that journey when I had to expose everything to Kelly and say, look, this is what's going on. This is what I'm learning. This is what I believe scripture says. And she freaked out. She said, I want a divorce. And I said, no. That was the whole conversation. No, you're not getting a divorce. And you're not leaving, and I'm not letting you go. I love you, and you're staying with me. And we're going to figure this thing out. And we're taking this journey together, right?
Right. 10 toes in Torah at that point.
10 toes down for Torah. And it was during that time, we went another 5 years, maybe 6 years before Lily comes into the picture. I think there are a lot of guys that they see this and they get all excited and boom, man, I can have a second. And 6 weeks later, they're watching their marriage blow up and they can't figure out why.
Well, and that's something I kind of want to touch on as well. Like, we keep thinking that God's timing is our timing. And when you sit down and listen to what, Brother Rambo has been through just throughout his life, nothing was quick in what Yah did. Each step was filled with a lot of learning and a lot of training. Yeah. Before he even advanced.
And it's important for us to understand that God's not in a hurry.
Yeah.
He always shows up on time. Mm-hmm. He's not showing up at the last second expecting you to make wholesale changes that are going to shake up your entire family and your entire world in a very short period of time. Generally speaking, it doesn't work that way. Exactly. Right? Even when he came, when Moses comes, it took 80 years to get Moses ready. And then when he sends him to Mitzrayim, it's another year before, because I'm convinced when Zipporah circumcises Gershom, it's because it's at Passover. Well, that's Passover the year before. Well, Pete, they weren't celebrating. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Go back and read the story of Lot, and you'll find out that he was serving matzah at Passover. Yeah. So Passover was something they already sort of understood, but I think Israel needed that refreshed. But I think Moses understood it enough to mildly be observing or doing something. The bottom line is, a year later, Israel's ready. So it took a whole year just for Israel to get ready to leave Egypt. So for something as big as shaking up the entire framework upon which the common marriage is based, state document, preacher, you and me together forever, all of this, that's a huge framework that it takes time to rebuild that. And if you do it too quickly, you're going to cause damage. Absolutely. And I wasn't interested in damage. It was something that in fact, the elders that I was in council with from near the very beginning, asking questions, getting counsel, getting wise counsel from, over and over, they said, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Because there are too many guys that they want to go fast, and they go fast and tear stuff up, and then they have no wife, or they have a very damaged relationship that takes longer to fix before being able to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it all throughout our lives. A woman scorned, hell have no fury like a woman scorned. So that should tell you that her emotions are very dangerous. Yeah. And it could lead to a church hurt often that, you don't know how to heal. And I can tell you from personal experience, it takes a heck of a long time to heal those type of wounds. Yeah. Versus, in any physical malady. So
it was almost 3 years ago. It'd be 3 years ago next month when Lily came into our lives.
Congrats.
Yeah. So and actually that was when she joined the patron. And I said, this is interesting. I'm going to watch. I didn't didn't immediately contact her. In fact, it was months before we had a direct conversation. But I was watching, observing, right? And then it was, and then the understanding was clear up front where the direction was that we were headed. And actually, initially, I volunteered to help her find a husband, and she said, and at the same time, I said that if somebody else can't, I'm willing. And she said, "Well, let me pray about it." She came back a couple days later, and she said, "I think I'd rather just see if the Father has something for me in your house." And that's the way that unfolded. And then there were months of communication via Telegram and video chat, and Kelly was involved right from the very beginning. Right within 24 hours of Lily saying, I think I'd like to know, or I'd like to see whether or not I fit in your house." Within 24 hours, I had conversations set up between them and a group chat for all of us, and then I had a conversation with myself and Lily. And going forward, that's the way that was operating. I didn't hide anything from Kelly. I learned that lesson previously. And I was just on the up and up. But a lot of it is, as I tell a lot of men, you need to be thinking with the right head.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But he, Brother Pete also speaks to something very important that we have to understand as men. You have to know your mission and know what you need to complete that mission.
Right.
So you can't go to a woman, not tell the truth, and then all of a sudden flip the script and say, "Hey, I'm gonna try this out today."
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that. If this is something that that you've been called to practice, like the Father has confirmed it, then you need to always be upfront. Because the worst thing that you can do to anybody that's on your team or in your household is throw a monkey wrench in the works when they have an understanding of the operations working this way, and then you're going to say we're going to change and go something completely different. Just as Pete said, that could completely destroy your household, completely ruin it. And our brother Hondo said that you want to be careful because women scorn like that, they generally tend to destroy a man's property, a man's progeny, go after his
productivity.
Yep, productivity, hurt his pockets and his money, which ultimately will damage your image. It can ultimately destroy your reputation to the point to where you won't be able to do anything in that town. You'll be given a scarlet letter in that town. So you really have to be careful and not only know what you want, but just tell the doggone truth. That'll save you a lot of heartache.
Yeah, deception is your enemy.
Absolutely.
Operating in deception is your enemy. Deception is a feminine trait. I'm not saying that's what females have or do, but it's a feminine trait from the perspective that it's operating out of weakness. Instead of being a man and stepping up and saying, "This is the truth and this is where I'm standing."
Right. I mean, Yeshua never had to lie to anybody.
Yeah.
And when we look at
he wasn't sneaking around.
Yeah, he wasn't sneaking around.
It was who is it that was sneaking around? It was the rabbis coming up going, "No, we got a test for you."
It was the men of tradition.
Huh?
That's who was doing the sneaking around.
So anyway, so Lily's been part of the family now for 2 and coming up on half years, 2.5 years.
Oh, congratulations.
So absolutely, thank you. And we're blessed. She's actually she was originally not in this country. She's been here as a permanent resident for more than about a year now. We're coming right up on a year. She arrived right before Passover last year permanently. She had been coming for visits 4, 6, 8 weeks at a time prior to that because her job she was able to work remotely at that point.
Man, time flies.
Yeah.
I remember when you first announced, I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick.
See, I think a lot of people, they look at it and go, "Oh, that happened so fast." No, it didn't. It didn't.
Oh, yeah,
there are a lot of years involved. I'm literally on year 11, 14, no, 12. year 12 of the just over 11, because December 25th, 25 would have been 11 years from when I came out. I'm just saying, when I published my first public piece on it. And there are other things. I've got lots of stuff published now besides that book, and hundreds of YouTube videos on the subject and what scripture actually says. But I've also got at least 3 different papers on academia.edu and some other stuff, because ultimately I believe just as Shabbat and feasts and food are essential to understanding and walking in Yah's ways,
right?
Understanding, I'm not saying doing, but understanding headship, patriarchy, and polygyny is essential. You need to be doing the patriarchy and the headship part in your home. Polygyny is something you have to simply accept, and then if the Father calls you to it, you should work that out, walk it out, right? Because ultimately, the Father himself is a polygynist, right. The 2 houses of Israel he describes as his 2 brides, the house of Israel, the house of Judah. He calls them his 2 brides in at least 6 places in Scripture. A couple of them, he just straight says, "These are my brides," right?
Yeah, 4.
Divorced one, I did not divorce the other. Well, how do you divorce half? You can't, right? So the end result is that's part of the framework, but it also helps us understand, what is he really doing? What's the big picture? And that's, again, goes back to 10 parts in the King, and what that tells the story. I didn't understand polygyny well enough at that point, and it would have been a bridge too far in that book to bring it up, but it would perfectly fit right in at the tail end of that book, saying, here's the rest of the picture. And the picture is that God has 2 brides, house of Israel and house of Judah.
And just as Brother Pete said, polygyny is just marriage.
Yeah, it's just marriage.
Exactly. So many people get so hung up on it. It's not called for everybody.
Right.
Everybody won't be in polygyny. Some men, or rather most men, are going to just have one. And that's going to be right on point for their mission, the helpmeet that they need for their mission. Some men are going to have it. It's just marriage. It's not the end of the world, but so many people want to make it, so many people make it the end of the world.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you about really quickly, since we're on polygyny, I remember seeing videos on your channel from probably about 15 years ago, where you're making chauffeurs and things like that. It was just homesteading and going to chauffeur and keeping the feast here. What changed when you initially started doing the videos about polygyny? And you said, this is a hill I'm willing to die on, because we need to make a shift.
Eschatology demands that we be walking in righteousness. The restoration of Kol Israel demands this. In order for, and I see so many pieces of eschatology directly connected to the restoration of Kol Israel and the things that go with that. I mean, even Isaiah chapter 3 and 4. Isaiah 4 is a chapter about polygyny that's directly connected to the daughters of Zion and the restoration of Israel, right? And so, there are a lot of guys out there teaching other elements of Torah, but this was the thing that it was the burn in me that I couldn't get away from. I kept coming back to
boogeyman for everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the Father, when he sifts us, he tests us with different things, and if we're willing to answer the test and follow that, he'll then give us the next piece of information. And this is one of those things that there are a whole lot of people that, oh yeah, I'm all about Shabbat. I'm all about, keeping the feast, man. Let's go camping. Let's, make sure we eat clean. Oh, that poly stuff? No.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point at which the Father goes, are you serious? Right? Are you really following me, or are you following your traditions? You're going to let your tradition step up and be the idol at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's probably how this became sort of a central issue, because it certainly hasn't gotten me more views. If anything, it got me fewer viewers. Right?
Oh yeah,
it's there are more people who choose to leave than there are who come in the door saying, "Woohoo! We're going to talk about marriage."
Right.
So, but really, I would continue the conversation of the headship and patriarchy aspect of it, saying that there's more. And I know you want to go here. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but one of the things that I've been passionate about doing is putting together a conference where we can build men, we can build families, we can help women grow. We can, and it's a way for those who understand Kol Israel can get together and learn and grow. And so one of the things now we're getting ready for the second annual. It doesn't happen until July of this year.
The weekend of July 9th.
I put Assembly of the Righteous up, and we'll come back to that one too. Right. But we've got the Kingdom Restoration Conference. You know what? I don't even have that banner in. Yeah, I do right here. Look at that. Technology.
Right. It wants you to pick a time.
Yeah, there we go. So I started working on the Kingdom Restoration Conference. The point being for the conference to bring together like-minded men, women, and families for a weekend where we can worship together, we can fellowship together, we can learn and grow. We've got fantastic dynamic speakers. Yeah, Brother Mike Allen and Sister Devorah, Aubrey Killian from Maxima Potentia, as well as Ryan Ridgely from Maxima Potentia. Also going to have Brother Jonathan.
Yes.
He's going to be speaking. Yep. I'm excited about him. It's going to be fantastic. I love to hear him speak. Just a very gifted man with a lot of wisdom. Yeah. Absolutely. Big knowledge, big wisdom. So go to Kingdom Restoration Conference or conf.com to get details on registration. Also what the hotel links are that we're going to be in. And come join us. This is we're really excited. You know what? Go get your flag. Right? I need to get mine too.
Yeah.
Hold on. We're gonna have to leave the now we can.
Okay.
Here, I'll toss it to you.
Cool.
And I've got mine somewhere too. Yep. And where's mine? I think I've got it.
And I saw it outside. I know I saw it outside, but it might have been.
Yeah, I've got another one that's in here somewhere. But one of the things that we are asking every family to do when they come to the conference this year is to bring their family crest on a flag. And I've got the information at when you register, you'll receive an email confirming your registration and any extras that you got. But it's got instructions for where to go get these flags made. It's like $36. You've got to do the art, but once you do, they can put it on these flags that are very nice. This is a fantastic flag.
Yep. Fantastic flag.
Printed on both sides. It's like $36.
Yeah, it was fairly cheap.
And so all of that information and links with where you can get a good pole for that breaks down for travel, that kind of thing.
Or you can just pick one up at Walmart or order one. Because when I went to the link, they were out of the ones particularly on that website. So I'm just waiting for them to restock. But
yeah,
you can find a flagpole anywhere. But these were fairly cheap.
Anybody flying is going to need that shorter one because it screws together. It's multi-piece that screws together. We used that for Sukkot this past year. I had a different flag for the tribe of Gad. I'm a Gadite, I believe. I just see we're going to have a wall full of flags from all the participating families, and I'm really excited about that. That's going to be fantastic.
And it's going to be beautiful. Me and Brother Pete were talking about it earlier, but he sees a wall of flags, but I see every one of the families just standing there holding up their flag.
Mm-hmm.
So each year you're seeing these families grow.
Mm-hmm. and the number of flags growing.
Yep, the number of flags.
There's some other ideas growing. We have in connection with that as well, with maybe streamers on the flags for the years that you participate in the conference or whatever. You can have a whole bundle of streamers. I love the idea. I think it's gonna be fun, fantastic.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Like I said before, it's gonna be like a big family reunion. If you feel like you've been missing in action or haven't been able to connect with the right people, get in Brother Pete's Patreon right here. We talked about it earlier, but this is really where you want to be. Brother Brother Pete and a few brothers, I believe with Brother Aubrey, they actually set up Assembly of the Righteous. And on there's a fellowship finder. So you can find local families to fellowship with in their home
Mm.
or virtually.
Mhm.
Some people have virtual, some people also just have their phone numbers on there.
Yeah.
If you want to connect and network that way.
Yeah.
But that's another way that you can connect with people locally.
And
close to you.
yeah, and that's a free site. Other advantages, we've got businesses,
Yes.
member businesses
Business.
on there that are listed. I know you've got something listed
Yes,
on there,
sir.
which is fantastic. I'm excited about that. But specifically, it's a way for brothers to connect. It's a way to find others in your area, or to be the first one that others find. Right.
Exactly.
The goal
Like
being
Brother
to be
Pete
able to
was at the church.
yeah. And so if Assembly of the Righteous, and that's a free website as long as you agree to the 9 basic tenets of understanding our faith or belief that we have. Come on.
And you
Love
can read
to
it, read it, search it.
Yeah.
But that is what we believe as Torah keepers.
So,
And that is what we follow.
fantastic. Absolutely.
Well, Brother Pete, thank you for this interview, brother.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate
I've
it.
enjoyed this. It's been fun. We've had a good time. And I look forward to seeing some new peeps on your channel as well. So they need to come get connected with. I'm going to put that back up here real quick while I'm thinking about it before we close this thing out.
I appreciate it.
See if I can find where I typed that. Doop, doop, doop.
And don't
Right
forget,
here.
guys, when you join Brother Pete's Patreon, I said it before, I'll say it again, and I always say this. Men, you want to get in at the $20 level a month. You get one of these gorgeous shirts here. You also get a copy, which, in my personal opinion, Brother Pete wrote a manuscript called
That's a
According.
big book.
Yeah, big book. That's what I call a manuscript. But you actually get an autographed copy. But and that's just the men joining at the $20 a month. After that, you can drop down to $5 a month. Cup of coffee, or that's a sandwich, or skip lunch for a day.
Just find the place that works well for you.
Right.
The most popular place really is the $10 a month level. You do get the book at $10. You don't get the T-shirt, and you can order your own T-shirt, right?
Right.
But the $10 a month level, not only do you have access to all of the Telegram, but you have access to all of the mentoring calls. And we do a weekly Sunday night mentoring call that is men and women. Typically, it's the ladies and I leading that. And it's an opportunity to ask questions, what have you, or we'll have a topic to discuss. A lot of chat. It's a great place to learn and grow.
And then you can also go and check the replays, because he has a lot of great content on the replays in Patreon, especially some of the older mentoring calls.
Which is true. Once if you're joined at the $10 or at the $20 level, you can go all the way back in the archives and dig out all the stuff that's in there. Lots of gold in there, I'm sure. So
absolutely
fantastic. All right, guys, fantastic. Jeremy, I have enjoyed it, brother, and I look forward to
great Shabbat. Shabbat.
Absolutely, I look forward to that as well. We're gonna get to hang out the rest of the evening and kind of chill. I think the ladies have some dessert for us. So
okay, well, hey, let's get on up.
All right, sir.